Anyways, Jason Bukala, former Director of Amatuer Scouting for the Panthers, many years as an NHL scout, now analyst for Sportsnet joins me now. What's up, buddy? How are we doing?
Good morning, buddy. That's unbelievable. It's going to drop this morning. I did a story on Alex Steeves and now Minton, Steeves, and Grebenkin are all going to be up at the same team. Might as well just play them together because that was the Marlies' top line down in the American Hockey League.
I was going to say, hey, like people complain that this isn't a true Toronto sports town, that not enough people go and support the Marlies, and it's like, not tonight. Tonight you get to support them. It's Marlies night. I got to start with this, though, before we get into Leaf stuff. So yesterday, the Boston College game was on TV. They played Providence. Did you watch any of it?
I did not.
Okay.
No, I was.
Right.
I would have something else.
It doesn't matter. It's not going to be directly about this or about anything from the game. So I'm like, oh, Hagens, right? Like, and Boston College is a bunch of young players. Like a bunch of them. I think they've got 3 guys that were taken the first round last year, and Providence had 1 guy. And I went, okay, I'm gonna fire this on. There's a Celtics and Cavs game I'm gonna watch, and I don't need anything else so much. Like, I'm going to fire this on. I'm going to watch some college hockey. And it was good. It was fine. But it did make me realize I think hockey scouting is by far the hardest one. Like, just in basketball, you're watching guys who have the ball the entire time, right? For the vast majority of the game. And even if it's not like a great offensive player, you're still able to pick up skill sets a little bit more easily, in my opinion, like the shooting. And you're just going to get a larger data set. Watching this game, I came away from an entire viewing experience with like no feeling about any of those guys. If you would have told me like, hey, those are the 3 picks, I'd be like, oh, yeah, like for sure, because they were on the top line. They got the most ice time. But I just don't even know how you guys, like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of tape. Like you got to watch everything to actually formulate opinions on these guys. Because again, I watched one, thought I would have something. I got nothing. I got nothing. I got no takes on any of these guys. Hagens looks just like a normal sized dude to me who's fine. It's like, if you told me he was special, I'd be like, I guess so. You say so. I didn't see it for a game. So good job. I don't understand how you guys do it.
Yeah, it's just, well, listen, buddy, you're a professional radio host and savant in your area of expertise there. I can tell you that there's a lot of guys on the tour that have been traveling the world. And I mean, people get down on the scouting fraternity at times that we don't hit on every player. And your soliloquy right there is a beautiful synopsis on why we don't hit on every player. It's not an exact science. And you're comparing. So if you look at me as a scouting director, you're watching that NCAA game. I'm watching the NCAA, the USHL, the CHL, European prospects, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all different levels of leagues, all different types of projections. So I'm glad you said that. College hockey, especially when you get Providence and BC, I just looked it up quick. Some of these drafted guys on BC as we're talking, It's crazy, eh? The almost a whole roster here. But
yeah.
College hockey is a fascinating animal into itself because when I send my guys, just as we're kind of going on a sidebar here, when I send my guys in to watch college hockey and I see on their schedule that they've got 1 game, the Friday night game, let's just say, and then they're going to move on to another game the next night, I honestly would ask them to stay for both games. The reason being that these guys are so amped up all week long practicing for those 2 games, call it the Friday-Saturday set. And that Friday night, they're shot out of a cannon. And it is hectic. They're all over the place, sometimes not real organized for a while. It takes a good half a game to get into the flow of being strategically sound. So I always wanted my guys to stay for 2 reasons. Back-to-back tells you something, obviously. But the other thing is that by night number 2, it's more organized and more compact because they've got a lot of that energy out of their system on the Friday night game. It's fascinating.
No, that's cool insight. Honestly, I could pick your brain about this for a very long time because I sat there watching the game with a friend. And he tuned out because he was like, I don't really care about Providence versus BC. And I was just sitting there watching it. The most of the time, I was really trying to go like, okay, at the end of this game, if someone gave me if I had to take notes on it and I had to present what I thought of these players, it would just be impossibly difficult. Like I really would. And then you factor in like the age differences of some of the guys and just where they're at in the development track. And it just Yeah, it's got to be incredibly difficult. Anyways, so let's scout and evaluate some of the Leafs guys that we're going to be seeing tonight, those Marlies. I got to be honest with you, unless you tell me otherwise, I'm not going to spend any time on Steeves because I think my evaluation is nothing special, and I don't think anything there. I think that he's lesser Holmberg. Do I need to go further on this? You wrote on him. You think there's something there?
Yeah, absolutely, I do.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
He's more than Holmberg.
Now, hey, we're gonna see who the scout is now, boys. Listen,
Yeah, well, I need
you
the
got
opportunity.
14 years in the league and Director of Amateur Scouting, and people get mad at us because it's a hard job. All right, put your stake in the ground for Alex Steeves. I'll go against it. Why am I wrong?
I'm putting it in the ground. Well, couple of reasons. First of all, he's similar. So my take on it in my piece is that I believe that he gets a chance over Robertson in the 3. And this was assuming at the time, this was yesterday, that Domi was still going to play today. So this might change. They might have to, basically they're going to have 2 fourth lines going tonight by the sounds of it. So, or bottom 6 guys. Their bottom 6 is going to be equal parts. Let's just put it to you that way. So anyways, Steeves. The thing I like about Steeves is that not only has he produced offensively in the American Hockey League, and he really has, if you take a look at his statistics, but he has a B game. We've talked about this before, JD. He has a B game, so he's more sturdy than a Robertson. He will go to the paint. He'll set up shop around the net. He'll extend plays along the wall. He'll get under checks to create turnovers. He can penalty kill. He can check. He's not just a one-trick pony. And Robertson, when he's going in the preseason, especially when we saw it, he's a dart and dash guy off the rush, great release, full of energy. He's still full of energy in the NHL, but he's got 1 goal in 16 games, and it's just not happening, right? So my take on it was that it's a better opportunity or a better fit or an opportunity definitely presenting itself for Steeves. So I do think that you're kind of undervaluing him because even Holmberg, I guess the Holmberg one's kind of interesting because Holmberg sort of has a B game too, and they have a similar body type.
They're the exact same size.
Yeah, they have a similar body type. So, but this guy here, if given an opportunity, you're going to see a little bit more growl to him. And it was a couple of years ago we introduced Bobby McMahon to the equation, and I'm not saying he's McMahon because McMahon's bigger and he skates downhill better than Steeves does, but. When you're given an opportunity like Steeves is going to be given here in Grebenkin and obviously Minton, be curious to see what they do with it. So listen, buddy, we're going to circle back on this.
100%.
We're going to circle back on this. We're going to go for some chow and we'll figure it out.
And I'm going to go pay for this dinner because you were wrong. And that is exactly what it is. Because, here's, this is some of my dumb guy brain, how I evaluate some of these dudes, right? Do I think that this guy can play in the league? Yeah, sure. He can skate just fine. He's got fine size and he's obviously got talent because he scored 27 goals in the AHL in a season. And he's produced in the AHL all the time. But to me, he is your quintessential what they call in baseball, the 4A guy who's really good in the one level below. And then just when he comes up to the NHL, doesn't have the plus skill in any area. Like with Bobby McMahon, he's got plus size and he's got plus skating for that size. And he can drive the net in a way where you're like, okay, he can do this routinely, where it's he can get to the outside, beat his guy wide, and then drive it towards the net and create havoc. With Steeves, from what I've seen, I just don't know what his special trait is supposed to be. I don't know what the thing is that makes him stand out in the NHL.
Yeah, so he's going to be depth offense, secondary depth offense, but he can provide the energy and he can wear down an opponent with his tenacity. When the article comes up, there's a GIF in there. You're going to see a game in Charlotte recently where he's an absolute pain in the ass going up the ice. He runs over the goalie. He's creating turnovers. He's doing all kinds of things. He's got that in him. And again, it's a maybe, but I think it's an opportunity to at least, in comparison to what you're getting out of Robertson specifically, I at least give it a chance. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at with that. It's at least give it a chance and see what happens. And we were at the same spot with McMahon a couple of years ago. We weren't really sure as a group. We were all talking about it. What's this guy going to be able to provide? And I honestly thought that he was only going to be able to provide something similar to what I'm talking about Steve's. But you're absolutely 100%. The size factor and the fact that he's got more dart and open ice. He's bigger. When I say skating downhill, Bobby McMahon up to speed when he chips and chases. There's not a lot of guys, defensemen in the NHL that are looking over their shoulder and they're happy to see that coming down on them. So I get it, but given the state of where we're at, let's see where it goes.
No. That's if it's leaned up against, hey, are you afraid to take Nick Robertson on the lineup or try other options? Like, to me, it's an obvious no. And I actually didn't think we were going to have any Robertson convo today because I don't really know what there's much to say. But yeah, he had this awesome preseason, and I think I was texting you about him there, going, okay, this is the year, this is the time he's got to make the leap, and it just always feels like this with this players. Good preseasons. I think he does care. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I do. I think he understands the things that he needs to focus on, or that he's tried to get better in a lot of areas, but just that it doesn't cooperate. Like, he doesn't have the size or the strength to stay on his skates. He doesn't have the ability to create for himself and get that shot off with root. Like, I guess I'll ask it bluntly. Like, are you giving up on him? Like, do you think that this guy can ever be anything in the, like, do you think he can even be a regular NHL'er?
It's depleted value again for me right now. His value coming out of preseason was at its peak because he had zero leverage in the summer, working off to try to get a contract, and then everything else around that just to earn a roster spot. He earned the trust of the coach, and the coach was his expectation was prove it to me, and he did. But honestly, if my phone rings and I'm an executive somewhere in the league, or even if he goes on the waiver wire and I have to put him on my roster, I guess if I'm a San Jose or
sure,
Chicago, something like that, maybe I take a run at that. But honestly, he's done everything that he can. Let's just say that he's worked at it. It's clear that he's put the time and effort into it. I understand he had 14 tucks or whatever he had last year, all at even strength. It's good. That was peak performance. He feels more like a guy who's going to make a lot of money in the DEL, the German league, or the Swiss league, or even the KHL to me, than he is going to be scoring goals in the NHL.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Okay, so the other guys. Let's get into Grebenkin first. Guy who fought in the preseason and made some fans. Guy who's going to get a look and an opportunity here. I guess, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of the last year? And whether you think he's going to take advantage of this opportunity. It sounds to me like, based on the article, again, we just found out that he's going to be up in the lineup, so a bit of a surprise. But let's put it this way, actually, because this will be the same way that I frame it with Minton. What do you want to see from this guy? Like, what do you want to see? If you're there, you're scouting him, you're going, these are the signs that we feel like we're hitting on something here with this guy in particular. And then we'll do that for Minton.
So more of what he's actually been doing in the American League. So what you saw in Grebenkin in the preseason when he was involved, so he's got mid-range size. He's not a heavy guy. He's kind of a wiry guy. But, he is a skill person by definition coming into the league, coming over here. You looked at him, you say, okay, he's going to be a guy that needs to probably play in your top 6, top 9 for sure. He's going to be a skill guy. He's going to extend plays. He's going to be crafty, et cetera, et cetera. What he's done, though, is he's come over here to North America and adjusted to the North American style really, really well. He is very deserving of a look because what he did in preseason wasn't an anomaly. He's carried that over into the American Hockey League. He's extending plays. He's involved in the fight. He's working off the cycle. He, too, is kind of going to the net and finding loose pucks. The three of these guys really complemented each other in the American Hockey League. Minton, in the middle was dishing to the flanks for these two guys. And Steeves was kind of the late guy on the scene more often than not. The other two were more like the play drivers, and Steeves was kind of the lurker, if you will. But I'm impressed with them. I think this is a true prospect with upside for sure. It's not just offense. I think on his worst day, he's got enough buy-in to check for you too. He's not going to. Don't expect him to drop the flippers like he did in the preseason and all that other garbage. It's not going to happen. But he's going to be reliable enough to check in his zone on top of hopefully providing some offense in time.
I love that he fought in the preseason. I genuinely thought it taught me something about him. I was like, this guy's a gamer. He's in it. So, no, I liked it. Now Minton. The more you talk about it, I would like to just see a line of those guys play together tonight. Like, why not? What do you
they got synergy. They play the game the right way. The three of them are playing the game the right way. They're right at the top of the table in Marley's scoring, and they're all plus players. So why not, right? So Minton, let's start, when you start forecasting a guy is going to be a 3 or a 4, I think he's a 3 in the NHL at his ceiling. I don't think he's a top 6, but I think he is a 3. So you start with things like, for me, scout nerd stuff, but, is he going to be able to win draws? How's he going to contain in his zone? Those little things because he's going to get some hard matchups on the road, right? So Over 50% in the faceoff dot, much stronger JD in small areas. So if he's defending in the circle, let's say, and the puck works off the cycle up the wall, and he's got to jump out to close on his check, where last year he might reach and use his length, like poke check almost that way, and it kind of throws you off balance a little bit. He's got more strength and more jump to that space, and so his contained game is much improved. You'll see that defensively in his zone. Offensively, I love the fact that he goes to the net. I still like the fact that he wants to work again down low to extend plays. He'll absorb contact, which is obviously a huge thing in the NHL. But don't expect the high-end offense. That's not going to be his trait. He's going to be a secondary scorer. 5 games, I think 2 goals, 3 assists, if I'm not mistaken. And he looks solid. He really does. He looked responsible and solid, but secondary scorers. So don't everybody be jumping through hula hoops expecting really high-end offense. He's going to do all the other stuff appropriately for the team.
I actually think so. When it comes to Maple Leafs prospects, it's usually so much hype, and you go, God, this is so much expectation, right? And last year, he ended up getting a lot of it because he broke camp with the team, which, to be honest, I think a lot of people forget because it was such a distant memory, and then he faded so quickly. But my impression of him was immediately, hey, this guy actually could use the AHL time because he's got to get bigger and he's got to get stronger. And I would guess that, he's made strides in that area. I don't think fans, appropriately now, they've sort of recalibrated their expectations of him. I think that if he does turn out to be a 3C, especially given what this team's need is down the middle, people understand the value of that, and people would welcome the value of that. I don't think he needs to be a 25 goal scorer in the NHL for people to be thrilled with this pick. I think if he's just like a solid two-way player that chips in goals every once in a while, and you feel like you can play him with other guys that do have skill and not have them go completely dark, like we've seen with the third line throughout so much of this season so far, that's a real hit for this team. In fact, I think it's incredibly valuable for this team, and they sort of need to hit on him.
Yeah, it's valuable for a couple of different reasons. Everything you just described in terms of the player and how he plays the game, but also internally, when you're working your budget, your clock with your roster, guys like this need to hit because you need those guys that are on their entry levels or bridging to their second contract. When you're a 3, let's forecast him as a 3 who has just entry level scoring, like bottom, just secondary scoring. When he bridges to his second contract, that number is very, very affordable. So what happens is you plane out the prospect for 5 or 6 years at an affordable rate, which allows you to build around him and spend more money on, obviously the top of your lineup and your top 2D and that kind of thing. So I'm not dummying down his value. I'm just saying that there's a number that's appropriate for this type of player. And if you can get him playing the way that we're describing right now, and you plane them out for 4 or 5 years and you're good as a team, well, then that's great news because that's how you backfill your lineup.
Do you think that he's gotten bigger, stronger, more adapt to play? Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah. No, it's noticeable on his core and his lower half. Yeah. His bursts, like his small area bursts are much better. And he doesn't – so his threshold last year, if I had to pinpoint it, would be about 30 seconds maybe before it fell off. Like his fitness would fall off, especially if the game became a track meet. Even at the junior level, and those guys milk those shifts at the junior level. It drives me crazy. Like they're out there for a minute and 10 seconds. It's ridiculous. But anyways, I digress. He's got more in the tank now. So if he's got an extra 5 seconds and that ends up being a shift that you're pinned in your zone and you've got that extra strength and endurance, that's where it really factors in for a player like Minton.
So we got to do the Easton Cowan update because you're the London guy. And I expressed concerns at the beginning of the season of, is this going to be good for him? Will there be regression? Can a guy plateau? Is he going to be too good for this league but not good enough for the next one? Is it going to be one of those awkward situations? What's the update on Easton Cowan?
Empty netter last night. The streak goes on.
Yeah, the streak is outrageous.
Yeah, the streak is outrageous. He's coming down the stretch here to surpass Doug Gilmour. I think it was Doug Gilmour. I'm pretty sure about this. The all-time streak at the CHL level, and he's scheduled to break it by, I think, a week from now, which will be about 54 games. It's like the Joe DiMaggio of hockey. So it'll be a 54-game point streak. He scored in the empty cage last night in Kitchener. Things are good. Things are fine. London is going to be playing all the way till June. This team is a wagon. Oh my goodness, it's crazy. They're an American Hockey League team. That roster, and so he looks good. He looks strong, and it's going to be. But I know we're probably running out of time. But buddy, like this is the problem. I hope in the next CBA that I know he's going to go off in the CHL for the rest of the year. He's going to go play for Team Canada at the Worlds. There's a lot of positives here, so I'm not knocking it down. But geez, I do wish he was in the American League right now. I really do. I wish there was spots for a couple of high-end guys that still had junior eligibility to play in the American Hockey League and really press up against that type of resistance. He would do better at that. But anyways, that's not the case. He is where he is, and everything's going to be fine. He's going to be a top 6 NHL player for a long time. And if I'm in player development, I'm just my area of opportunity in his ear all the time is like, buddy, you got to have that tenacity that you've shown in the past. The stuff that got you drafted and your best shifts when you never go away, you got a little bit of rat with your skill. You're going to have to bring that all the time, and don't get caught up in just point production because it's easier at the junior level. Yeah.
Okay. That's the reason why you had the questions about whether this was the right developmental level for him to be at. Because clearly he's going to be able to collect points, and he's we checked it. He's 3 games away from Gilmore. Passing or tying, Armin? Tying. So 4 from passing, 3 from tying. That's great. Everyone, you want to have points, but the thing that has made him stand out, or that made it feel like he was really making that leap, and I remember when I first talked to him with you about him, it was hey, don't get crazy, but there is a little bit of Darcy Tucker to this guy. And that's the element of the game that I think is really going to put him over the top, because at the NHL level, if you're just a primary undersized scorer, that's going to be more difficult, right? So no, I hope he's keeping the tenacity. And with the junior question in terms of the next CBA, now that there's the evolving rules and the changes with your team and the NCAA and what you sign up for with the CHL, do you think that there is a possibility for more wiggle room there? Because I understand wanting to protect those CHL teams from just, jerking around their players and having them be off their team, and what a disadvantage that is for especially the groups that are developing them. But is there something that works for all parties? Is there something that a lot of people in your circles talk about and go, no, this is actually a plan that could work?
Well, in our circles, we've talked about it forever, about having this type of scenario hopefully change over time. It comes down to economics. And the NCAA is going to be a part of this now going forward as well. The CHL pays big development fees to teams like the London Knights, like the CHL. They bring in, off the top of my head, it's north of $12 million a year they bring in development fees from the National Hockey League, because they pay for the time spent to develop the Easton Cowans of the world. And it's good for the box office, right? When all these high-end guys are playing in the CHL, but it's not the greatest for me to see. We went through with Owen Tippett. Let me tell you, Brian McCabe and Dale Town, we come out of a game with Tip, and we're just like, oh my God, buddy, you're driving me crazy. Like, you're so much better than that, and it's frustrating. So that's my short answer to it. But it's going to come down to economics, and it's going to come down to the clock. And what I mean by the clock is that you're going to have imagine Cowan was a 3rd-round pick, let's just say, but he's trending in a really positive direction, but we think he needs an extra year. Well, now, if he decides he wants to go play at the University of Michigan for 1 year, and we drafted him out of junior, well, technically we only had him on our clock for 2 years before we make a contract decision on him. But it's 4 years for NCAA and it's 4 years for Euros. So the CBA is going to have to make an adjustment there. That's another thing that's going to have to change. Any of our prospects that go to the NCAA route, we have to still maintain their rights. And so besides the dollars and cents of it, everybody's got to be on the same field, or same playing field for development time. The clock has to be the same, and that's 4 years universally.
So I almost feel dumb going to the final line of questioning that I have, because I'm scared of the answers, because I haven't watched a lot of them. I haven't watched a lot of Chicago games this year. I tuned in for the Canucks game. He has the turnover that leads to the empty netter, and he's only got 3 goals this season. It's Connor Bedard. 19 games, 3 goals. He's still producing points. He's got a lot of assists. But the thing, again, that is what makes this guy special is the shot and the goal scoring. That's the primary thing about his game, and it's not going in the back of the net. And I'm curious what you make of his sophomore season. And secondarily, whether or not the lack of production puts it in jeopardy that he's going to be on Team Canada for the Four Nations, which I think at one point we felt like that was an absolute lock.
Yeah, I don't feel the same way about that right now, and that's only like 2 or 3 weeks out of me saying that. Yeah, he should be probably introduced to the culture at the very least. Like introduced to that environment.
Yeah, that's real
because he's the future of it, right? And he's the torchbearer. So a couple of things on him. Like the Vancouver game the other night, I didn't love it, and I've watched Chicago probably 3 times in the last couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. The one thing that stands out for me strategically is they've got to get somebody in the middle of the ice with it. He's 30% in the faceoff dot, JD, 30%. And so he's a skill guy. 30%. He's not tall, but he has a really long stick, and he's struggling in the faceoff dot at the NHL level. The problem with that is that they don't start with the puck enough. So now imagine this. You chase it for 15 seconds just as a number, okay, especially if it's in your zone. Now, before you ever get it back, you're halfway through your shift anyways, and, your threshold is approaching. So somebody's got to start with the puck, or they got to start winning more draws, whether it's him or somebody else, and then he's going to have it on his stick more, which should lead to more scoring chances. I mean, doing some math here. But on balance, it's fine. I'm not worried about it. This guy hasn't forgot how to score goals and do all those fantastic things he can do. But Chicago is undefined for me. They don't have a defense core that necessarily transition pucks or move pucks. They don't have like that Quinn Hughes coming on the back end, in that prospect pool. And guys aren't getting pucks as much in transition to create. So if he's low and slow on the breakout, if he doesn't have it on his stick originally, he might not get it like other prospects do in the league. So he is a little bit of a product of his environment is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, which is fair. And I think that Chicago deserves a little bit more criticism when it comes to that environment, because I know that this wasn't the easiest way to fix the team was through free agency this year. But I mentioned before the season, I really didn't like their offseason all that much. And yeah, I think when you've got a guy like him, you want to not try to overly expedite things, but yeah, the stuff they did, I didn't really love. And yeah, they're still they got 6 wins, 6-12. I'm looking at right now, lost 3 straight. Like it just looks like, it's not going to be changing anytime soon. So
if you do get a chance to watch them play next time, only look at how the defense transition the puck to the forwards. And there's a reason why the Folignos of the world look fast when they corral pucks in the neutral zone that are just kind of 50-50 pucks, because he's got a full head of steam, but he doesn't have it on his stick going north. It's just like it's like an accident almost. So take a look at that next time you're watching.
Will do. I think, you're on Friday. Hey, buddy, you're on Friday. We'll be looking forward to watching you. Thanks so much for making time as always. Always great.
Great to talk to you this morning, brother.
Of course,
and
buddy.
I'll see you soon.
Yep, absolutely. See you, buddy. Jason Bukala of Sportsnet and former Director of Amatuer Scouting for the Florida Panthers, 14 and 19. I always get it wrong. I should have written it down.